As Veganuary continues to grow in popularity, researchers say restaurants are removing meat dishes from their menu. In the U.S., the FDA no longer requires all drugs to be tested on animals before human trials, a law originally passed in 1938. Utah's Great Salt Lake is set to dry up in 5 years, scientists have warned, thanks to unsustainable water use to grow hay and alfalfa to feed livestock. There were calls to end macaque experimentation at Harvard Medical School as it was revealed that researchers sewed shut the eyes of infant monkeys. In a historic turnaround, the EPA commits to studying factory farm pollution and whether stronger pollution rules are needed, a first in 15 years. Footage from spy cams revealed the grim reality of slaughterhouse gas chambers, showing pigs squeal and thrash violently around in the cage, disproving industry claims that asphyxiation of pigs improves animal welfare and reduces suffering. A new report detailed how factory farming drives up the use of toxic agriculture pesticides for animal feed, which not only destroys native biodiversity, but also threatens wild plants and animals via the heavy use of herbicides and insecticides. Meanwhile, global pollinator losses are causing 500,000 early deaths a year due to resulting 3 to 5% loss of fruit, vegetable, and nut production. And a global cohort of researchers have warned that bird flu outbreaks are fueling the chance of a human spillover, while an outbreak at a Spanish mink farm triggered pandemic fears. As bird flu spilled over to otters and foxes in the UK and caused the mass death of sea lions in Peru, it has now killed an 11-year-old girl in Cambodia, according to officials. In China, scientists have successfully cloned super cows that will be able to produce 50% more milk than the average cow. As we learn that Animal Ag continues to be the top U.S. soy consumer at 97%, it was also revealed that 78% of Americans want federal farm funding to prioritize food for people over feed for livestock. Meanwhile, the FDA said plant-based drinks can still be called milk. New research looking at antimicrobial use in food-producing animals shows it's continuing to grow across the globe. In the UK, we learned that cultivated meat investments jumped fivefold in 2022. Meanwhile, the first cultivated pork filet made its debut there. In Ireland, calves exported for Dutch veal were brutally beaten, jumped on, and hit in the face, hitting cameras reveal. In Germany, new research has revealed that animal welfare is a stronger determinant of public support for meat taxation than climate change mitigation. A new report from Animal Welfare estimated that global farm finfish production increased from 9 to 56 million tons between the years of 1990 and 2019. And Costa Rica finally announced a ban on the fishing of hammerhead sharks, which are critically endangered due to the demand for shark fin soup. In March, scientists from the IPCC delivered a final warning to act on the climate crisis, while new research revealed that people don't see industrial meat as a key cause of global warming, despite accounting for a minimum of 14.5% of all human-made emissions, with some estimates as high as 28%. Meanwhile, the meat industry blocked the IPCC's attempt to recommend a plant-based diet. New research revealed that over 170 trillion plastic particles are afloat in the world's oceans, mainly due to the discharge of plastics from naval, fishing, and shipping fleets. Meanwhile, Brazilian researchers find terrifying plastic rocks on a remote island made from fishing nets. Over 300 groups endorsed the Farm System Reform Act, which proposes to halt the construction of new and expanding factory farms and phase out existing large factory farms by 2040. In the UK, piglet litters are becoming too big for sows to feed their babies due to intensive breeding and antibiotic use on farms, while spy cams reveal squalor and suffering on a mega farm in Warwickshire. The UK is also set to import high-carbon beef and low-welfare pork in post-Brexit agreements with Canada and Mexico. The world's first octopus farm proposals alarm scientists as the famously intelligent creatures will be killed by being put in containers of water kept at -3°C, causing a slow and stressful death. A meatball from a long-extinct mammoth has been cultivated by taking the DNA sequence from mammoth myoglobin and filling in the few gaps using elephant DNA. And new data link COVID-19's origins to raccoon dogs at the Wuhan market, adding weight to the theory that infected animals sold at the site started the coronavirus pandemic. A report from the UN on the safety of cell-based foods concludes that they are no less safe than the real thing. A vending machine in a remote Japanese town is now selling meat from Asiatic black bears. Japan is also running out of space to bury chickens culled over bird flu, making it difficult to prevent further spread of the virus. China records the world's first human death from H3N8 bird flu. Meanwhile, the U.S. begins testing bird flu vaccines for poultry. A Texas dairy farm explosion kills around 18,000 cows, likely caused by machinery in the facility, igniting all that methane gas, adding to the nearly 3 million farm animals that died in fires across the U.S. between 2018 and 2021. The European Parliament adopts a new law to fight global deforestation, obliging companies to ensure products sold in the EU have not led to deforestation and forest degradation. In the UK, spur dogs are removed from the prohibited list, allowing fish and chip shops to put the small shark back on the menu. And on the Isle of Wight, a cow faking sleep, apparently in an attempt to get out of being milked, attracts global sympathy. The Guardian drops a huge expose on Big Beef's climate messaging machine, describing a digital command center that runs 24/7 and monitors the internet for messaging opportunities, leaping into burnished beef's image. Tyson food stock plummets after it slashes outlook for 2023. Meanwhile, an investigator exposes the myth of free-range chicken as they record a Tyson representative saying,
"Those birds don't go outside. You know that. They don't all go out. Free range."
Plant-based milk company Oatly challenges Big Dairy over its climate impact with a free advertising offer. A report from the UN making the case for meat, eggs, and milk as an essential source of nutrients is found to be co-authored by industry representatives. Police in Spain and France break up an international eel smuggling gang, seizing 1.5 tons of baby eels that were on their way to China. The Supreme Court opposed Prop 12 after the National Pork Producers Council tried to overrule the will of California voters. The Idaho Fish and Game's commission proposal to kill a majority of the state's wolves gets okayed. An LA student sues her school district for telling her to praise cow's milk. And the FBI are filmed visiting the home of a vegan activist, apparently because,
as with any organization, there always is the potential of bad actors kind of clinging on to a cause that's a good cause.
June saw the U.S. approve chicken made from cultivated cells, making it the nation's first lab-grown meat. In Canada, Parliament passes a groundbreaking bill to end toxicity tests on animals. In Brazil, more than 800 million Amazon trees have been felled in 6 years to meet global beef demand. In the UK, supermarket supplier chickens are being given antibiotics critical for humans. A new World Bank report finds that subsidies for fossil fuels, agriculture, and fisheries exceed $7 trillion and are making climate change worse. AI food tech company Climax Foods announces the major discovery of a plant-based casein replacement. A new study on the widespread diversity deficits of coral reef sharks finds that overfishing is driving resident shark species toward extinction. Dairy producers in the Midwest are dumping milk amid oversupply and plummeting milk prices. And in Iceland, there will be no whaling this summer as the minister halts fin whale hunting. In July, a new study on the environmental impacts of food went viral, showing that the people who eat a plant-based diet account for 75% less greenhouse gas emissions than those who eat meat. A new report on animal markets and zoonotic disease in the United States concludes that the risk is staggering, with a regulatory landscape that is inconsistent and full of holes. Lab-grown milk has huge potential to disrupt dairy, a new study shows, with the opportunity to nab up to 33% of dairy's current market share. In Brazil, Amazon deforestation drops 34% in the first 6 months under President Lula, mainly by prioritizing environmental law enforcement and seizing thousands of illegally raised cattle within embargoed areas. The Australian trial of seaweed cow feet fails to achieve hope for methane cuts as researchers look to trying daffodils instead. The slaughter of 78 whales made headlines, but only because it happened in front of cruise ship passengers. In the EU, conservatives score a big win on industrial emissions rules, which will now exclude cattle farms altogether. In Scotland, on the Isle of Skye, cows were found chewing on plastic rope from washed-up fishing nets. And in Santa Cruz, an otter continues to evade wildlife officials as she's pursued for the alleged crime of board jacking. In August, over 30 marine scientists signed an open letter regarding Iberian orcas and their interactions with boats, asking the media not to characterize them as aggressively attacking vessels or seeking revenge. The orca, some call Lolita, dies after more than 50 years in captivity, while in Canada, a new expose by the Canadian press reveals that 14 whales and 1 dolphin have died at marine land since 2019. An undercover investigation at Holden Farms in Minnesota shows, amongst other things, employees mixing intestines of dead piglets to feed pregnant sows, turning them into cannibals. In Michigan, dairy farmers are slated to start transforming milk into fuel by using lactose-laden byproducts of the local dairy industry. The gigantic power of the meat industry is blocking green alternatives, a new study finds, showing that animal farming receives most of the public financial support for food producers. Speaking of which, the USDA updates the livestock disaster payment rate to assist producers hard hit by heat and humidity, with officials stating, apparently without irony, that a changing climate is creating immediate challenges for farmers and ranchers. New research shows that price, taste, and convenience, competitive plant-based meat would not currently replace meat, stating that social and psychological factors play important roles. Meanwhile, new data from the monthly meat demand monitor shows that the older you are, the less you care about the environmental impact of meat and the more you care about taste. September sees the Galápagos Islands tighten biosecurity as avian flu arrives, threatening unique species. An anti-yogurt PSA is banned over excessive gore, causing unjustified distress. A new report reveals how meat dishes dominate the recipe sections of mainstream media. Apple ditches leather for more environmentally friendly materials. After Elon Musk claims that no monkey has died as a result of Neuralink implant, the gruesome details of their deaths are revealed. The Biden Labor Department inspected just 879 farms last year. Meanwhile, food giants Tyson and Purdue are facing child labor investigations after a 14-year-old animal's arm was mangled in a conveyor belt. 200 plus members of Congress now oppose the EATS Act that sought to gut states' rights to regulate the way animals are farmed for meat. In the UK, social media platforms are to face fines for publishing animal cruelty content. The EU considers dropping stricter animal welfare measures, citing concerns about food inflation. Over 30,000 pigs are culled in Italy to counter African swine fever as authorities forcibly remove activists barricading a sanctuary. And some fish species are shrinking, likely due to global heating and overconsumption. In October, a comprehensive continental-scale analysis of the carbon footprint of food production finds that the footprint of plant-based foods amounts to only 10.7% of animal-based ones. The Sonoma Rescue Trial sees a Whole Foods farm owner stating in court that thousands of chickens are cannibalizing each other on his farm. Ex-officials at the UN farming body say work on methane emissions was censored after they wrote about the hugely damaging contribution of methane emissions from livestock. In Europe, Denmark publishes an action plan for plant-based foods, while the Stockholm Environment Institute called for a just transition away from animal agriculture to support environmental and public health. A new study maps the deep ties between big ag and Europe's right-wing politicians that are forged with alpine hikes, rooftop soirees, and free office space. Meanwhile, lobby groups fought hard and dirty against the EU ban on cage farm animals, which has now been shelved despite the support of 89% of European citizens. Also, the industry figures behind the declaration of scientists backing meat eating, aka the Dublin Declaration, is revealed, with one of the authors calling veganism an eating disorder requiring psychological treatment. And Bjork and Rosalia announced a song together to protest Icelandic fish farming. In November, new research reveals that replacing 30% of meat with plant proteins could offset almost all global aviation emissions, free up an India-sized carbon sink, and save 7.5 swimming pools worth of water a year. An animal rights activist is convicted of a felony for rescuing sick chickens, marking the first time a Direct Action Everywhere open rescue case has ended with an activist's incarceration. In California, cell-based meat company Oatly completes construction of its pilot plant, which has the capacity to produce up to 400 tons of product. A new study on the consumption of ultra-processed foods and risk of multi-morbidity of cancer and cardiometabolic diseases finds that associations were most notable for animal-based products, while plant-based alternatives were not associated with the risk. Cigarette-style climate warnings on food could cut meat consumption, a new study suggests, which could reduce selections of meals containing meat by 7 to 10%. A new report details how the livestock industry's new methane metric called GWP Star would normalize high methane emissions by setting the baseline to current levels. Italy bans cultivated meat and the use of meat-related names such as salami or steak for plant-based products. And AI predicts the majority of the world will be vegan by 2075, thanks to Gen Z and millennials. In December, big meat and dairy lobbyists turn out in record numbers at COP28, with 3 times as many delegates representing the meat and dairy industry as last year. During the conference, the UN releases a report that urges nations to ramp up meat production to address health challenges in poorer countries, with critics stating the agency had completely bought the narratives of the meat industry. A new study looking at the cardiometabolic effects of omnivorous diets versus vegan diets in identical twins finds that out of 22 healthy adult identical twin pairs, those consuming a healthy vegan diet showed significantly improved cholesterol, fasting, insulin levels, and weight loss compared to the twins consuming an omnivorous diet. New research on animal lives embodied in food loss and waste finds that 18 billion animals' lives were wasted in 2019 alone. That's approximately a third of the food produced globally. New research on the carbon opportunity cost of beef finds that pasture-finished operations have 20% higher production emissions and 42% higher carbon footprints than grain-finished systems. Food without meat and dairy is more likely to be chosen when labeled as healthy and sustainable, a new study shows, while the same food is less likely to be chosen if labeled as vegan or plant-based. And the release of a sequel to the movie Chicken Run is praised for putting factory farming in the spotlight, as campaigners hope the movie can help change diets, as did the movie's director, who became vegetarian during production.